This computer. Okay, right.
Recording in progress.
That's all right.
Oh, I'm hearing an echo, quite a serious echo back. Where am I hearing it from? Okay, it's all right now, it's gone. So, first of all, most of you, some of you I've seen since the new year. So Happy New Year to those of you whom I have not seen since the new year. And Happy January. Is there anybody here, I know to some of you I might have, is there anybody here to whom I've not explained what I've discovered about the happy meaning of January?
No, I've not heard it.
Have you not?
No.
Okay. And I'm going to explain, it might seem a bit far-fetched, but bear with me, but the Jan, of course, in Latin, Jan, of January, is actually from the same ancient root, the Proto-Indo-European root, as the word from which we get Jana, as in Mahayana.
Wow.
Did you know that, Marco? Okay.
Not at all.
Oh, so, Marco, could you angle your camera a little bit because we can see that's better. That's fine. Thank you. It's okay. So we'll start with a little bit of Roman mythology because it actually is slightly relevant to what we are doing. As we know, the normal Latin word for a door or a gate is a porta, which then survives in exactly the same form in modern Italian, and of course in French it becomes la porte, and then in Spanish puerta, and so on. There is another word in Latin which is janua, which is it is more of a ceremonial gate, not just an ordinary porta. The janua, yes, it means a door or a gate, but would have more ceremonial meaning. There was a certain building in ancient Rome, I forget the name of it actually, you may remember, Marco, where if Rome was at war with another nation or tribe, or if Rome was at war, the janua of this building was left open. It was the janua of the god of war. The janua, the gateway, was left open to signify that Rome was at war. When Rome was at peace, when it wasn't at war with anyone, I don't know if that happened very much, but anyway, if Rome was not at war, then the janua was shut. So it was a gateway with a certain kind of significance. It was the passage from one state to another, the passage from the past into the future. Within the Buddhist scriptures, and for example, look at the Satipatthana Sutta and many other suttas, we are invited to see ourselves, our bodies, our breath every moment as something that has the nature of arising. It's got the arising, it's got the duration, it's got the vyaya, the ceasing. So everything is a constant arising and ceasing. And that is why in some meditation practices, we're invited to look closely at even small transitions, the transition from the sunset from day into night, and even minor tiny transitions, the in-breath and the out-breath, to be aware of them. The transition, even going out of one room into another, or leaving a building into the open air, the transition through the janua, the doorway. And Latin had the god Janus, which we've got into English as Janus, but Janus is the god with two faces looking forwards and backwards. It looks both ways through this symbolic gateway, the god of the transition. And the janua gate. Janus is the god of the gateway. We have the word in modern English as the janitor. The janitor, originally meant the gatekeeper. In modern English, it just means the person who's in charge of looking after the building and keeping it clean. But it's from that ancient root. Now, going back to a very, very ancient root, we have the Vedic root I, meaning to go. And it's exactly the same in Latin. It's ire, to go, which survives in English in such words as exit, ex, it, out goes. He goes out. It also has an extended form in Vedic as in ya, so I and ya. Ya is just an extended, strengthened form of the root, also basically meaning to go. But it's from that root that we get a word like, we get yana, which means a vehicle, something whereby you go, whereby you move, which we have in the Mahayana, literally the great vehicle. By a similar process in Latin, the root I also had a strengthened form ian, which survives in Janua, because the idea then, it conveys this idea of the gateway being that whereby you transition from one state to another. Even transition, transire, to go across, to transit from one state to another. And so the Januarius is the month of the Janua, the month of the gateway. We are passing out of the old year into the new year. And so there we are, Mahayana, January and Janitor, and Janua and Janus, all from that same root. So January, the gateway month.
Beautiful.
So let us go back now to our Bhagavad Gita.
James, sorry, just before we do, I wonder, I was going to, on this really quite extraordinary, so I was going to ask you about doorways. In relation, I'm currently reading a book by Bhikkhu Hanalaho, who's a scholar of early Buddhism and meditation.
Sorry, can you give me the name again? I didn't catch it.
It's Bhikkhu Hanalaho. The book is
Analayo.
Yeah, Analayo. What did I say? Analaho.
Analayo.
Analaho.
I will explain it in a moment. Yeah.
Abiding in emptiness. It's a guide to meditative practice.
Oh, well, so abiding. I think I've heard of it. In fact, I'd better get it. Yes. So, just making a note of it by Analayo. Okay. Yes. Please carry on, Chris.
Now, he's got some very interesting things to say about the doors of perception, our senses, our subjective experience of the physical world.
That's right. I mean, it's known as the sense doors.
Yeah,
and we have this guarding the sense doors.
Yeah, he speaks in terms of essentially our experience of materiality, and it's most easily understood in terms of the sense of touch, is to do with resistance. And he uses the Sanskrit word pratikha. I just want to ask you about this because this kind of tactile resistance, what I've discovered this week, very practically, is that I'm relatively new to weightlifting at the local gym. And yesterday I was attempting to improve on my previous personal best. In this particular instance, I was deadlifting as opposed to I'm working on upper body strength there. just tangentially in terms of lower body strength, I use a leg press machine, but setting that aside for one moment, what's very interesting in terms of this pratikha or resistance is that when one's at the limit of one's strength and intending
Sorry, can you go back a couple of seconds after you said resistance? I didn't catch the next words.
Yeah, when in terms of resistance and the experience of our subjective experience of materiality, what I've discovered is is at the limit of one's strength, one's intending to improve on one's previous personal best. There's a great deal to be discovered about this resistance, because as you start to apply effort in order to lift the weight, you encounter resistance. Now, what's very interesting and what Biko Hanalahu writes very interestingly about is that the mind seems to know a great deal more about that resistance to one's effort to lift, than would ordinarily appear to be the case. So one attempts to lift the weight in this particular instance, encounters resistance, but part of the mind, there's something at a deeper level of the mind, and he speaks of this, which not only knows intimately about the experience that's going on in the moment, but also knows whether or not, in terms of the current causes and conditions, including one's own physicality, conditioning and training, it knows whether one can lift that weight. It's an extraordinary business. And oddly enough, if a thought comes to mind when one encounters that resistance, I can't lift this, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't. But if that doesn't happen, and if one just connects with the knowledge, I knew I could lift that weight, or one within that part of the mind knows. What he's writing about is the primacy of mind in relation to our subjective experience of the physical world. So you're attempting to lift a weight, you encounter resistance, but the mind at a deeper level knows a great deal more. It's much more intimately connected with this experience. And this applies to all of the senses, I believe, including mental consciousness. Anyway, you get to this point, you've got the resistance, you start to lift, and one knows whether one can lift this particular weight at this particular time under these particular conditions. It's quite an extraordinary business, really. And you get the same if you're using the leg press machine. One can feel through the soles of one's trainers when one encounters that resistance. You know whether or not you can push that weight, press that weight. But what I wanted to ask you about specifically was this Sanskrit term, a pratikha.
It is, yeah. What I'll do, actually, this is, yeah.
Say something about it.
It is the pratikha. It's from the root, the root han, with the verbal prefix prati. What I'll do then, I'm just going to share screen with the server. I'm going to share screen. Nearly with you, just boom, boom, boom. Here we are. Okay, you should all see the iPad now, do you? Correct, right. Okay, can you tell me what you see now? I mean, I've got a bank of 3 screens here, so I can see you all on the screen in front of me, and I can see the shared screen is on the monitor to my left, and the kind of spare screen with everything else is the monitor to my right. Can you all see the shared screen, which is now a blank iPad, and all of us?
Yes.
Okay, right. So we'll just look at this pratihan, and also look at analayo, which is a fun word, bhikkhu and analayo. I presume it's the same Analayo who's written those very valuable works on the Satipatthana Sutta.
Yes.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah. He's got about, according to the back cover here, 500 publications. He received a PhD, research PhD, at a university in Sri Lanka, and then has worked elsewhere, including the university in Germany.
That's right. He's a very prolific writer. In fact, he writes in a bit of a German way, which one expects. He is a German after all, but in a very meticulous and thorough. In fact, he's written 3 separate books on the interpretation of the Satipatthana Sutta, and he's a very valuable writer indeed. Okay, let's look at this pratika. There's the root han. Oops. It's the root han, right? In ancient times, it was probably something like a ghun. But it's come into Vedic as the root han. It is a bit of an irregular root. Sorry, not an irregular root. It behaves in an irregular way through its various verb forms. And sometimes the g comes back. So, for example, with the third person plural, it means originally it means to hit or to strike, but then its further extended meaning, which later became more common, was to kill. You'd expect, for example, to see something like hananti, for they kill. That would be regular, but it's not. It becomes gnanti. Gnanti. And as to, I think I said this to the class, yes, why it behaves like that way, it behaves that way, with the coming and going and is because it's a little bastard. Honestly, it is. It's as if it is deliberately irregular just to annoy us. Okay, I'm being reactive here. What I'm doing, I'm demonstrating pratika, or pratika in Pali. There's pratihani. I'm striking back. I'm resisting it. You see. So pratihan, prati is the prefix. It's the most subtle. I think it's the most subtle prefix in the whole of the language, Sanskrit and Pali. It means back or against. So pratihan means literally to strike back, to hit back against something. It's the resistance. Those of you who know the Karaniya Metta Sutta in Pali, one of the verses begins with Byarusana Pratiga Sanya. Pratiga Sanya means would be Pratiga Sanya in Sanskrit. This sensation, this reaction, this mental construction of pushing back, hitting back, often translated as resistance or aversion, but the literal meaning is hitting back. So in Pali, it's we have pratihan, prati plus han. Okay, in Pali it becomes prati plus han, and the noun, this striking. Sorry, I haven't done that well. Is pratigha?
Yeah.
And I think in Sanskrit, is it pratigha?
Yeah, the prat as opposed to pat.
With a ga or a ha?
A ga.
Hang on, I'm just going to double check this in Moni Williams. Be 1 sec. Oops, sorry, I turned up the wrong thing. Sanskrit. Here we are. Yeah. So here we have in Sanskrit pratihan, to beat against, and then strike in return, strike back, ward off.
Mm.
In the causative form, you see this g comes back, the more primitive g, pratighatayati. And there's the Sanskrit suit in Pali as well.
Yeah.
Ghata,
Yeah.
ghata
Yeah.
is the word meaning killing, murder or killing.
Yeah.
Ghata. So is there a pratiha in Sanskrit? Or does it become pratigha in Sanskrit? I know the word in Pali, but I can't remember if I've encountered it in Sanskrit. Yeah, that's right. Here we are. So
Yes.
pratigha. So the hap then it goes back to its primitive form with the gha. So the hindrance, obstruction, resistance, opposite, literally striking back. But anyway, I will get hold of this book, Chris. Thank you for
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. It's a wonderful read, I'm finding, and again, it's showing sensory experience in a completely different way. I've never really thought of tactile impressions in terms of. I mean, right now I'm pushing against the table that I've got that's holding my computer, but it is resisting. It is pushing back, so to speak. This seems to apply with all of the senses, including mental consciousness.
Yeah, it's actually a very rich meditative exploration, the entire thing of resistance.
Mm.
Anyway, I'll get hold of the thanks for pointing out this book, Chris. I will get hold of it. I do love reading Analayo in anyway.
James, can I ask a question while we're on the prati prefix? I was going to ask it later, but it seems relevant now.
Go, please.
So this is in the Bodhicharyavatara, there's pratyaya as a plural, feminine plural noun, and I know it must come from the same set of elements as pratitya, as in conditioned, co-arising, pratitya samutpada. But how does pratyaya form?
How does pratyaya form? Okay, we'll get on to pratyaya because in Pali, praticca samuppada is one of the often translated as conditioned co-arising or conditioned co-production is one of the, well, it's a core doctrine. I'll get right onto that. Just after dealing with a curious bit of etymology. So, incidentally,
are you back on your pad, James? Because you've got the dictionary still up.
Oh, so I wasn't yet writing on it, but I'm about to. Thank you, Peldon. Oh, hang on. Are you still there?
Yep, we're still here.
I've lost you. Oh goodness me! You all suddenly disappeared. I've got you back now. And is my shared screen? There we are. I pressed the wrong button. Anyway, we're now restored. A little bit of etymology here. And bear with me because it is actually fairly relevant to us, whether we be English speakers or Latin speakers or indeed Italian speakers, that the various words in Latin that begin with an F have an odd origin. So, for example, something that begins that has a d in Sanskrit and Pali can finish up being an F in Latin. So we have the root the word dharma, root dri. This dharma, the original meaning of dri is holding, firmness, solidity, holding. And this turns up in Latin as in firmus. Firmus meaning firm or solid, and that's the same word that has come into English as firm, F-I-R-M, firm meaning solid, stable. And for example, we use this expression pronounced in English terra firma, but in Latin terra firma means firm ground, but it's from dharma. Equally, from the root, not from the root, but from an earlier form of the root, we see han turning up in Latin as fend. So fendere, and particularly defendere, to defend, to strike back. If you defend yourself, you are striking back. So in fact, it could be the di or dis in Latin is cognate with the vi in Sanskrit and Pali. So be vihan, defendere in Latin.
Like fencing in English, fencing with a sword.
Exactly so, yes, because fencing was fencing, defending yourself with exactly so. In fact, and from that same root, so in fact, when you talk about your garden fence or the fence between two properties and fencing with a sword, it's the same meaning, because your fence is the fence around, particularly going back to ancient times when you protected yourself against enemies and wild beasts. You had your fence around your domus to defend, to keep enemies and wild beasts away. And as Marcos rightly pointed out, fencing with a sword is exactly that same meaning, or same origin. And when, in a few moments' time, we do actually get into the Bhagavad Gita, the very first word in I'll just call it up briefly. 23:12, I think they were on. We'll find it. Yes, we'll be in a few minutes on this. Some dehinu, it's from the deha, meaning a body. So this deha, it's one of the several words meaning, oops, pen's going funny again. There are several words in Sanskrit and Pali meaning bodies. The most common ones are deha, kaya, and sharira, which is sarira in Pali. The deha has, in English actually, the deha means a form or a shape, or something that can be formed or put into a certain shape. So it's a shape that has been made. And curiously enough, we have it in English as the word dough. When you mix flour and water, you make a dough, which you can make into a shape. Curiously, in Latin, this it has become the root fig. So figura in Latin, and it's the same in modern Italian, isn't it? A figure originally meant a shape, something had been put into a certain shape. That's actually, oddly enough, it doesn't look like it on the surface, but it's from that same root di, meaning to shape or to mold something. Before we go on, I just wanted to look at this. Can I resist? I can resist it, but I choose not to. I just want to give you a little bit of etymology on the name Analayo. So Bhikkhu Analayo. So Analayo in the nominative form. It is from the root li, actually, li, which comes into English as lie, not lie as in untruth, but lie as in lying down. It makes a verbal noun, a layer, where you can lie down, a place where you, in fact, we have the same meaning almost. We see in leer and lager in German. So alaya is a place where you go to lie down, literally, and therefore it means your resting place or your abode. The alaya. If you are analaya, that means you are without an alaya. And that there's another interpretation as well, but I think the most accepted one is you are without an abode. Of course, if you were a wandering ascetic, you are analaya. You live from place to place to place with no fixed abodes. You are an analaya. The word, or one word for snow, is hima. So we get hima plus alaya. Now you might recognize it coming out. We call it the Himalayas in English. It's the hima plus alaya is Himalaya, meaning the abode of snow. So we have the monk Analayo, and we have the mountain range Himalaya. As I say, all cognate with our English word to lie down.
And pratyaya.
So what was that, pardon?
Pratyaya, you were going to explain pratyaya.
Pratyaya, so I was. I get so carried away, I forget. Pratyaya. Okay. This is from, again, this root E, constantly coming up. So we have the root E, and it makes a verbal noun in aya. In fact, I think that this form of the verbal noun, I could be wrong about this. I think it only occurs if it's got a prefix. I can't quite remember whether, does it ever occur on its own? Not sure. Okay, it's of limited use on its own, but a very great use with brief. So aya, meaning a going, but only IFC, which is abbreviation for in fine compundi, means at the end of a compound. So this is the aya from the root I, aya, a going. So of very limited use on its own, but very considerably used with a prefix, as I will explain. So the going, prati plus aya becomes by regular sandhi pratyaya. And this is in this subtle meaning of the word prati, which turns up in Pali as pati or pati. In Pali, you often mostly find it with a retroflex pati, but sometimes with non-retroflex pati. So as I've said, it means original meaning was back. It also means against, counter, opposite to. It's also a relational thing. So pratyaya is the idea of going back, going against but not against in a contrary sense. It's like in leaning. In English, we have the same meaning as leaning against a wall. If you're leaning against the wall, you've got nothing. You've got nothing, nothing against the wall, but it's just the phrase leaning against it. So you are leaning on the wall. The wall is supporting your weight, so you're leaning against the wall. Exactly that same meaning is in pratyaya, and it means depending on something. So it's like leaning against it, falling back on it. You've got a pratyaya as your support. Pratyaya is sometimes translated, but a little bit mistranslated as a cause. It's not actually a cause. It's rather a necessary condition for the existence of something. So you might say that if you plant a seed in the ground, it will need the soil, it will need warmth, it will need moisture, it will need nutrients in the soil. Now you wouldn't say that the moisture causes the seed to sprout, or the soil does, or the heat does, but all of these things, the soil, the moisture, the warmth, the nutrients, all of these are necessary causes, necessary conditions for the sprouting. So the apratyaya is more accurately looked at as a necessary condition for the coming into being of something else. So, although it's true to say then, broadly speaking, true to say that everything that arises has a cause, that doesn't really catch the meaning of pratyaya, which are the necessary conditions for something to exist. In fact, the more general word for cause, the two common ones, is hetu and karana. Karana, literally the maker of something. So hetu and karana, broadly speaking, are accurately translated by a cause, was pratyaya more accurately by a necessary condition for the existence of something. So,
I know you've explained this before, but how does pratitya, how does that come to be?
How did we get to, sorry, I didn't catch whether you said it in Sanskrit or Pali.
Pratitya in Sanskrit, but pratitya.
Okay, so it's pratitya in Sanskrit and pratitya in Pali. Okay, let me explain. I'll write it the circumflex because it's the merger of two vowels here. So it is a prati. Right, we have the absolutive form. That's the one that normally ends in twa, having gone. Say gantwa, itwa, kritwa, jnatwa. This ending twa, having done something. It is a rule of Sanskrit grammar, not in Pali, by the way, but it is a strict rule in Sanskrit, that this twa ending can be added only to a bare root, that is the root without a prefix. The prefix is known in Sanskrit as upasarga. So, gam, for example, to go, will become gantwa. Having the M becomes a T before, sorry, the M becomes an N before so gantwa, having gone. If it's a verb consisting of a root with a prefix added to it, like, for example, agam, to come, this form is not, agantwa is not permitted in Sanskrit. That would be incorrect Sanskrit. Instead of the twa, you add a ya instead, so agamya. So gantva, but agamya. And that rule is quite strictly observed in Pali. So twa, if it's just added to the bare root, but ya, if it's added to root that has a prefix. Observe, bear in mind importantly that this rule is not observed in Pali, and in Pali you can have indiscriminately agantva or agamma. In agamya in Sanskrit it becomes agamma in Pali. The next little rule is where you have a root that consists of or ends in a short vowel. Let's just look at the E here. And you add the ya. You insert, just phonetically insert a T. So, for example, well, let's look at this very root here, this very word that we're looking at here. So we get prati plus e. Now, we can't say pratitva in Sanskrit because we've got the root, because there's a prefix, so we can't use the twa ending. So we have to use I've deliberately left a space there, we have to use the ya ending instead. So it would be, without this rule, prati-i-ya, leaning against, used adverbially here, leaning against. But because of this little phonetic rule, short vowel followed by the ya ending, you add a t. It's got no grammatical significance, it's purely a phonetic insertion. So that's how we get pratitya. So prati-i-ya, prati-itya, pratitya. Of course, the E plus the E there, by Sandhi becomes a long E, pratitya. Is it all clear so far, Paladin and everyone? Right. So we have now, right up with the circumflex there, just to indicate it's the merger of two vowels. So we get pratitya, which then by standard phonetic notation in Pali, and we get the retroflex da. So pratitya. So the tya intervocalic with a vowel in each of the tya in Sanskrit becomes a double ch in Pali. The pratitya, that long vowel e, which Sanskrit is fine with a long vowel followed by a consonant cluster, Pali is not fine with a long vowel followed by a consonant cluster, and so it shortens to pratitya. So that is the explanation of the form pratitya. Pratitya and so pratyaya and pratitya are simply grammatical forms of what is essentially the same word. So pratyaya is just the verbal noun. Pratitya is the absolutive form. Having done one thing, then do another. But bear in mind, it's most important that this, what we call the absolutive form, is very often used adverbially. So here it means the samutpada, or samutpada in Pali, arising dependently upon something else. So it doesn't mean it did one thing, then another. It means that the arising is, use it as an adverb now, dependently upon. And the samutpada, of course, it's our good old root pad, literally meaning to go. And you all know this. It's the same root from which we get our English word foot. Il piede in Italian, pes pedis in Latin. The original meaning, of course, well, sorry, not the original, it just meant a foot in Indo-European. But then when the root came into Vedic, it had a verbal meaning of to go, which is perfectly logical, is the feet by which we go. By the way, when I did that, I mean, my hands were representing my feet. I think you understand what I mean. Padding along, we can say. So pad means to go. Utpad. Sorry, my pen's going wrong. Sorry, it's better down here. Ut plus pad. Literate to ut, which I think you already know. Etymologically, it's the same as the English word out, and it means both out and up. It means both, but in Sanskrit and Pali, more up. So the ut padyate, it goes up, literally goes up. That means to arise, to come into existence, and it makes the verbal noun utpada. Utpada. If you put some in front of it, sorry, my pen's going wrong again. I don't know what's doing that. So samutpada is what has been translated often as the co-arising. So utpada, to come into being, to be born even, to arise. Samutpada is like co-arising, various things arising in conjunction with each other. It could also have the meaning of just the completed action. For example, I'm talking about the sum here, either co-arising or just the completion of the arising. If we look at the word bhava, meaning coming into being. Incidentally, note there's the words bhava and bhava both exist. Bhava normally means coming into being, becoming, whereas bhava more frequently means a state of being. So bhava is more an action, bhava is more a state. Those two categories aren't rigid. There's a certain overlap between them, but broadly speaking, that's how they are. So bhava being, for example, one word for rebirth in Sanskrit is punarbhava, literally again being. So rebirth, punarbhava, again being. If we put the word some in front of it, in this particular case, it has the meaning of the completed action. Bhava coming into being. Sambhava is like the birth. A new being has come into existence. Sambhava. And we have the
materialization.
I'm sorry?
Someone who's materialized in front of myself, like Padmasambhava, out of the lotus. Materialization.
Exactly so. You've taken the very words out of my mouth, Marco. So the Padma Sambhava, literally lotus born, literally Padma lotus. So he arose or came into being out of the lotus. Can be literally translated as lotus born. So this prefix some. The basic meaning is kind of together or with. It's directly cognate with the Latin co and con. But it also has the idea of with the emphasis on the completion of a process. And in that meaning, we're using it the whole time in modern Italian and in modern English, because we have the word in Latin pletus, meaning full, but in English, we don't say just pleat, we say complete. So what's the difference between pleat, which we don't use in English, but let's invent the word Plato's pleat in English. So what's the difference in pleat and complete? And the difference is, as I see it, and I'd be grateful for contributions here, that when we use the word, I think it's the same idea in Italian as well. It's not that you're not talking about a thing being full or empty. You're emphasizing, you're focusing on the idea that there has been an ongoing process and it's now complete. You're focusing on the fact it's now completed, finished, done. And
sounds yes, reasonable. Like Purna and Sampurna.
Yes, exactly so. Very exactly so. Purna just means full. Sampurna, what does the sam add? It adds exactly the same as pleto, pieno in modern Italian, and completo. I remember once on retreat, I was washing up with an Italian lady. And we were speaking a little bit of Italian, and at the end of the task, she said, "Il nostro lavoro è completo." So that was a perfect use of that word. Our work is complete, meaning fully done. It was a process, quite a long process. There were a lot of people on that retreat, just two of us washing up. But so that was a wonderful meaning. You were looking at the process. Yes, it's done, but the emphasis on this is the moment of completion. It's now finished. We put the seal on it. So we have the same that same meaning back to bhava sambhava, and the same meaning but with an ambiguity in samutpada, which of course in Pali becomes samupada with a double P. That's normal. It can mean either co-arising, one thing arising with another, or it could have the same meaning as in sampurna sambhava, just the emphasis being on the completion of the process of arising. Is my explanation sufficiently sampurna to deal with your query, Palden? Sufficiently completo?
More than, James, thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. So Ati Sampurna, kind of even beyond this at Sampurna. Excellent. We will move on now, unless there are any further observations or queries. We can move on to the Bhagavad Gita. Any more before we get to the Bhagavad Gita, right? There we are then. Boom. So we did, I think, just briefly start this last time round, if I remember correctly. Anyway, we'll go through it now. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. So yatha, just as asmin dehe, asmin locative, dehe also locative, in this deha, in this body. So the deha is a body, and a dehin means an entity that has a body, the possessor of a body. And it's particularly commonly used in I don't think it's used in, is it used in Buddhist Pali? I'm not sure if it is. But it's this idea, this vocabulary is commonly used, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, when very much the emphasis on life and death, who lives, who dies, what dies, what lives on. So the contrast is made between the mortal body and what lives on. So the deha is the mortal body, and the dehin is an embodied entity, and often, well, we could say an embodied soul, to use the Hindu and even Christian idea. So the dehin.
Even it is this very word. We can find it also in the Bodhisattva Bodhi Avataracharya.
Bodhicharya Avatara, yeah.
Yes, and sometimes we find also videhim, so beings without a body.
Yeah, indeed, so yes, yeah. Thank you for reminding me there. I need to do a little bit more research on that. I spoke too soon. In Sanskrit, certainly, yes. I can't remember whether it occurs. I'll have to check whether it occurs in the Pali, but I'll check that. Dehi. So dehino. So it's the consonantal declension, of course. So dehin, dehin, stem form, an embodied spirit, we can say. Genitive dehinaha. So this is now, so I've written it with the without with the sandhi vigraha. Sorry, sandhi vigraha. So dehinah asmin becomes with sandhi dehinusmin. Sorry, yes, dehinusmin yata dehi. So yata asmin dehe dehinah kaumaram yovanan jara. So yata, just as asmin dehe, in this deha, in this figura, in this body, dehinaha or dehino by sandhi, of the embodied spirit, there is kaumaram yovanan jara. So just as there are for the embodied soul, kaumaram is youth, youth as an abstract noun. Yauvanam, so that's boyhood. Yauvanam is more youth, and jara, old age. From Yauvanam, of course, that's cognate with we have Juventus, Gioventù in Italian. Juvenile we have in English. It's that same word. And jara, like the ideas decay, old age. Same word as in geriatrics, geriatrico, and it's that same word.
James, I've just looked in Rhys Davids, and both deha and dehin are in Pali.
Okay, thank you. I stand corrected. I better do some more research on that. I don't think that in Pali, the use of the words the sarira, or even more commonly kaya, are the most commonly used words for body. I don't know what the distribution is. So if you want to say, what's the most common word for body in Pali, then that would be kaya. I'll check up on the frequency and distribution of deha after this. So, by the way, these are derivative nouns. I think you will come across the nouns that have with vriddhi of the first vowel. So kumara means as a concrete noun, means a young man or a boy. Means kaumara, the state of being a boy, boyhood. The same with yovana. Yuvana is un giovane, a youth. Tata, so just as for the embodied spirit in this body, asmin dehe, there are kaumaram yauvanam jara, tata dehantara praptir, dhiras tatra namuhyati. So just as the dehin, just as the embodied spirit goes through, while in this body, goes through the processes of experiencing boyhood, youth, old age, so equally tata, thus in that way, dehantara praptir, when antara, deha antara prapti means the obtaining, the getting of something. When antara is used as the second member of a compound, it often means, or usually means, other. So dehantara just means another body. So dehantara prapti, the fact of obtaining or the act of obtaining another body. It's the root up, just meaning to get or to obtain. It's most commonly found with the prefix pra.
Are you writing on your pad, James?
Sorry, I am. Yes, so up, to get most commonly found with the prefix pra, which in this case doesn't seem to add anything to the meaning. Very often the pra means going forth or ahead, but in this particular case, there's no change in meaning that I can detect. And in fact, you most commonly, I think I'm right in saying, find it with the pra. This root up, by the way, the idea of getting, obtaining, getting something. It's according to the etymological words, the summit of something. In English, we call the apex via Latin. It's that to which you do aspire to reach. You aspire to reach the summit. That is the apex. Also, is opulence. If you're opulent, you have obtained much. You have got much. This is just a little bit of fun etymology. I can't actually vouch for that being accurate, but it seems to be capable of being right according to the works of reference. That is, says apex and opulence. But anyway, back to where we were. Dehantara prapti. So it makes the up prap. It makes the verbal noun with a t. So let me give you. So prapti just means the act of getting or the act of obtaining. So dehantara prapti, the obtaining, the getting of another body. By sandhi, it's the prapti, but then followed by the voiced consonant the, that becomes the prapti, dhira, becomes praptir dhira. From our root dhi, meaning, broadly speaking, the mind, by the extended root dhya, we get words like dhyana, but basically it means mind, more in the sense of the intelligence. Here we have the root dhi with the adjectival suffix ra. So dhira means you are possessed of a good dhi. That here it just means wise or intelligent. Your mind is working well. So so dhira just means intelligent or wise. Tatra, so dhiras, again dhira tatra, by sandhi dhiras tatra namuhyati. muh. It's from the root muh, to be deluded, essentially, and we get the well-known moha. Meaning, translated as delusion, just not seeing things, not understanding things in the correct way. In Pali, so in Sanskrit, Pali is lobha, dosa, and moha are the three characteristics of the way we go around. Lobha, desiring; dosa, which in Sanskrit is dvesha, hostility or enmity; and moha, so, greed, hatred, and delusion, often translated as lobha, dosa, moha. Lobha and moha, the same in Sanskrit and Pali, but dvesha in Sanskrit, dosa in Pali. The verb form, it's a class 4 verb. Muhyati. The class 4, but it has the year, not muhati or mohati, but muhyati, is not deluded, is not confused. So the dhiras tatra namuhyati means the wise person is not in any confusion about this. Tatra, basic meaning is here, but in this context, tatra means on this point, in this respect, in this regard. So dhiras tatra namuhyati, the wise person will not be in any doubt or confusion on this point. By the way, I should just mention, since we're on the point, we have this Pali word dosa. In Sanskrit.
Can we see the iPad, please?
Sorry, thank you. So dosa in Pali, Sanskrit, there's both dvesha and dosha. They are two separate words in Sanskrit. Dosha essentially means a fault. It's from our meaning, from our root dush, from which we get du, and so on. So dukkha, durgati, is from that meaning of dush, anything that's bad or wrong. Therefore, a dosha is something that's bad or wrong, and therefore a fault. That's the basic meaning of it. Curiously enough, in Ayurveda, the word dosha is actually mean the what's the exact meaning? Some of the character, the food, or the body has its certain humors or qualities. They're called the dosha. I don't know why they've chosen that word, because underneath it means fault. Does anyone have any idea why Ayurveda uses dosha?
Maybe it's because usually you have a prevalence of one of the three dosha in your body, and this prevalence is bringing you to a state of sickness. If you are too much fire, too much pitta, then you are not in balance, and this is something negative. But if the three dosha are perfectly balanced, which is very rare indeed.
It is, I'm afraid, yes.
Of health. Swasti.
Swasti. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So they're not inherently dosha, but they can very easily, and in most cases, do create a dosha, create something wrong if they are out of balance. Okay, that certainly makes sense. And I saw Chris was agreeing with you as well.
Yeah. James, can I just quickly ask? Do you still upload your analysis of these Gita verses? Because I couldn't find verse 13, chapter 2, verse 13 in your YouTube channel.
The answer is yes, I do. have I done it? Yes, I have, because that's in fact the text that we've just been looking at now.
Yeah, I've got no problem about the text. It's your actual analysis, your YouTube analysis.
The YouTube analysis.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just wondered, I couldn't find it this morning on YouTube.
Oh, I'm becoming fearful that life might be catching up with me. Because I know that I did quite a lot, but then I hadn't done any for a while. I remember thinking, "Oh, I've done so many now, I won't have to think about that again for a while." But alas, the hare and the tortoise, life has caught up with me.
Yeah,
I think the Body Charyavatara has caught up with you as well, James, because it only went to verse 32.
Yes.
Does it? Okay, chaps. I've got some work to do, I acknowledge.
Sorry, James.
It is my mama doshosti. It is my dosha. It is my fault.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I thought perhaps you were posting these recordings instead.
No, in fact, there should always be, and if I'm doing my work properly, there will always be 3 separate things. There will be the written analysis, which is the one you see on shared screen now. There will be the YouTube video that I do, and thirdly the this recording that I'm making now, that will be posted. So okay, you've got me bent to rights, fair cop gov. I have fallen behind.
Well, I think you did an amazing amount of work, James. It wasn't a complaint. It's just
You were kindly pointing it out for the good of all. Lokasya hitaya sukhaya, or lokasya hitaya sukhaya. Okay, so stop screen. So we'll wind up there because I have to shoot off now for another meeting. So I will do my very best to get on with some more of this. And the YouTubes as well before our next meeting. And I will bid you farewell now, and thank you very much for joining me. Okay, thank you then.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all.
Jane.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
everyone.
Bye then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.